Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode. I have a special guest today from across the pond, Mr. Paul Green. Hello, Paul. How are you?
Hello, thank you so much for having me on the show.
I'm very happy that you're here. So, before we get started, we're going to talk about how we're both kind of doing the same thing, but let's hear a little bit about you and a little about your company and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, sure. I started my career as a newspaper reporter and then got into radio. So I was a music radio DJ for a number of years and ran radio stations, and all of that was really cool. And then in 2005, I had what's known as an entrepreneurial seizure. And if you've ever read The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, you'll know that that's the point you realize you could and should be working for yourself. So I quit my media career. I started a marketing business and then built that up over a decade, sold that in 2016, and then I landed in the world of managed service providers, MSPs, IT support companies, and that's who I work with now. I'm working with around 700 of them around the world. They are great people to work with
Wow.
as well. I know. They're such
Wow.
fun.
So, that's interesting. So, how did you wind up with the MSP world?
Well, it's you'd like to think there'd be some kind of amazing strategic plan, but like most things in life, it was kind of by accident. So the
Mhm.
marketing company I sold in 2016, I'd figured out the power of niching or niching very, very early on. And I was working in healthcare. So I was working with veterinarians, optometrists, and dentists. And when I sold that business, I had a 5-year non-compete as part of my sale agreement.
Oh,
So I couldn't work, I was sort of vaguely famous in these three sectors and couldn't touch them for 5 years. So I looked at all the general businesses I'd worked with over the years and found IT support. I thought, I'm not a tech person, but I quite like technology. And when I looked into it, I realized that the tech world is huge. It changes every 7 years. At that point, back then it was transitioning very much into the cloud. And of course, it's going through another transition right now as cybersecurity becomes such a big thing. And I sort of dipped my toe into it and I haven't looked back. And I feel like I found my market. A big thing in marketing is if you're going to go down the route of a vertical or a niche, you find a market and you marry that market. And that's what I feel I've done now. And it is a great market to be in.
yeah, and I think I agree with you 100%. And I even say that too, because again, I work with MSPs too. It's helped me tremendously by being able to focus, only on that versus trying to, help everybody and anybody. Because I think that people, I'm sure, when you talk to MSPs and they know the history that you have 700 other ones that you're working with, that's huge. To say, yeah, I kind of already get the gig, so I can tell you exactly what you need to do and what works and what doesn't work. So that's awesome. That's really cool. All right, so our first question for you today is, why is marketing so difficult for MSPs compared to other businesses? This is interesting.
Yeah, it is. I think it's down to there's a number of problems that hang around the neck of the average MSP, and it's all to do with the fact that you're selling something that is deeply complicated, deeply technical, and just difficult, and you're selling it to people who don't understand it, and in fact, they don't even want to understand it. So we put this in another way by saying that your leads and your prospects, they don't know what it is they don't know, or they are unconscious incompetence. You can ask any MSP, you can ask any ordinary business owner or manager to explain concepts like the cloud or malware, and the ordinary business owner just simply cannot explain them because they think they know them because they hear the terms bandied around, but they can't explain them. So when you're selling something like that, something big and complicated to someone who doesn't understand it, their brain is not making that buying decision. The brain delegates the buying decision down to the heart. So the ordinary business owner is picking an MSP or not picking them based on whether or not they like them. And that's a massive thing because you go and look at most MSPs marketing and it's very technical. It's very cold. There's lots of stock images and talk of accreditations and qualifications and experience levels. And that's not what people buy. People are buying literally, they're not thinking this, they're feeling this. Can I trust these guys with the biggest aspect of my business, which is the technology? Because technology is the biggest aspect of most businesses now. Can I trust these guys not to screw it up? Because they might not know about technology, but they know deep down that if you get it wrong, if you screw it up, game over. Right? There is no business without technology these days. And what this does is this slows down everything. It makes the buying cycle really long. It increases something called inertia loyalty. So inertia loyalty is where it feels safer to stick with the incumbent that you don't like than it is to switch over to someone new. And this is it's a crazy situation where someone will say, "Oh, I'm not that impressed with our incumbent. The service levels have dropped. They don't answer the phone very quickly anymore. But hey, I'm going to sign another contract with them because at least I know them." That doesn't happen anywhere else in the world, but it absolutely happens within managed services.
That's for sure. And I also think too, it's the personality of the MSPs and the people that work at the MSPs that their level of communication or their style of communicating is not necessarily the way that a non-technical business owner is going to understand and communicate. So they're comfortable talking in that technical black and white. Everything is very much, just this is how it is. And the language gets so technical so quickly. And that when they talk just amongst themselves, I mean, it sounds like a completely different language. So they don't realize that even just a few little key crazy words get people a little rattled that they're like, oh no, I am not gonna be able to carry on this conversation. So they just kind of shut down. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
that's
my
just
favorite for this is where MSPs will just drop in a little sentence like, "Oh, you just fire up an Azure instance," right? Which for most MSPs, they know exactly what that means. But for most ordinary folk, they just zoned out because they don't know what Azure is. They don't care. They don't know what an instance is. They don't care. And, words like users, endpoints, all of these are horrible, horrible words. And do you know, it's not just MSPs. All business owners make this mistake, which is they assume when they're doing marketing, they assume that everyone else has the same knowledge that they have. It is the number one mistake in marketing. Actually, you have to be very, very in tune with your audience and look at say, well, what information do they have? What knowledge do they have? If you are selling, if you're if say you're a vendor, you're selling to MSPs, that's a completely different sell. Because here you're selling to an educated audience and you're selling them a tiny little thing that makes up part of their world, but they know the right questions to ask. They know the pros and the cons. They might not know the details of your products, but they know how to find those out. Well, for MSPs, they're selling to people who don't know, don't care. They just want the outcome. They want less whinging from their staff, increased productivity. They just don't have to think about it and they don't want it to cost them the earth. They don't want technology to hold them back. They want it to empower them. That's what people really buy. They do not buy technology or services.
right. And I also tell not only just MSPs, but anybody in general that, like you just said, so much about your craft and your business that sharing some helpful little tidbits that you think are really not really a big deal are very, very helpful, especially in the cybersecurity world. If you can just break down little tiny tips, this is what you should do to better protect your company. This is one thing your employees could do to help, make sure there's not going to be someone clicking on something wrong or giving away credentials. There's so many little things that they can share because that's what they say to me. Well, what are we going to make a video on? And I say,
Yeah.
there's so much stuff we can talk about because there's people just don't understand this whole weird, scary word cybersecurity. So I think, and again, that's probably true for all different industries. If you're a financial advisor, there's tons of tips you could be giving people on how to save money or, ways to earn more money, that kind of a thing, depending upon what stage of life they're in. So I think that that's one thing
Yeah.
everybody needs to kind of think about, that you do have a lot of knowledge that you can create content with.
I agree. But, and the key thing is your use of the word tiny. It's got to be the smallest tip, the smallest piece of advice. So
Yeah.
for an MSP, if I said, before you click on a PDF, look at it carefully first or scan it first, right? Which is a tiny little thing. And an MSP will think, well, that's obvious. That's part of your overall cybersecurity stack. But actually, how often does a business get into trouble because an employee somewhere has just clicked on a PDF and they've done goodness knows what kind of damage. And you need to, if you start talking about the 5 things you need to do for your cybersecurity, it's too much. You can really drill it down to, before you click, think. Hover over a link, look down in the browser and see what the link is. If you're in any doubt, do this, risk that. And each of these are separate videos or separate emails or separate social media posts. It's almost like and this isn't about talking down to the audience. This is actually about dropping yourself down to their level. Their technology understanding level is so low, you cannot be looking down at them, pitching your information down. You've got to drop down to their level and talk to them in a way that makes sense to them. And that's very light, very low level technology tips, for want of a better word.
Could agree more. So now what do you suggest to them as far as which channels they should be using to do their marketing?
Yeah, it's a great question. And the number one channel right now is LinkedIn. So LinkedIn has been so hot for so many years for MSPs, and I see no sign of that changing. LinkedIn under Microsoft stewardship has just been, mwah, it's just beautiful. They've just made it better and better and better. It's gone from being the online version of your offline connections. We've gone through the silly, crazy period where you could connect to everyone and like 100 people a day. And it's kind of
Mhm.
settled in now where you can connect, where you can attempt to connect to 7 to 10 people a day. It's a great place to go in and say, right, who's on LinkedIn, which is basically everyone that I want to do business with. I'm going to systematically attempt to connect to 7 to 10 of them a day. 2 or 3 of them will accept, which is great. So I'm going to build up my connections by 10 to 15 people a week. And then I'm going to have a LinkedIn newsletter, which is a separate audience within the same platform. And then I can comment on other people's posts and I can engage and like. And there's so many things you can do within that platform. And you've got to look at it not as just a business version of Facebook or Instagram. It is actually a place where all the people you could ever possibly want to do business with, they're there. And I recommend to all MSPs that you find someone that can spend 60 to 90 minutes a day on your behalf working LinkedIn for you. Literally logged in as you, making new connections, commenting on people's posts, posting content. The risk is to overthink it. It's all very disposable on LinkedIn, but you've got to put in the activity on that. Other channels, your email database is still an incredibly valuable channel. Get into the habit of systematically collecting email addresses, pop them into a CRM, send out an educational email at least once a week. Another one is networking, and I don't mean cables. I mean getting out there, actually physically shaking hands and meeting people. We learned so much during, when COVID was full on, that we were actually being able to look someone in the eye, shake their hand, moves the relationship forward 10, 100 times more than doing a Zoom does. Zoom's very efficient because we can do a ton of Zooms from home. And, you could sell on Zoom, you can do lots of things on Zoom, but nothing beats doing the old fashioned thing of being in a room, touching someone's hand in hand, looking each other in the eye and asking them, hey, tell me about your business. What do you guys do? Because it's just great for engagement and relationship building. And I think if I was to say to any MSP, focus on these 3 things in this order: LinkedIn, email databases and email education, and actually getting out there at least once a week and meeting other humans. Those 3 things would do it. There's a ton of other things you could do, but those 3 things, that'd be perfect to do those.
Isn't it so funny to think that when you say to somebody, actually going and meeting somebody, like you have to make that suggestion? But I think so many of us kind of crawled back into our bubble during COVID, obviously. And there's some people that are like, this is great. I'm never going to, meet a person ever again. I'm just going to do Zoom. And I agree with you. I think it means so much more to go out there and actually, like you said, shake hands and look somebody in the eye and have a conversation with them. Not that
Yeah.
these aren't good, but it's just definitely an added bonus that definitely needs to be part of the plan. So now let me ask you this. What would be three, or not even three, what would be some channels to avoid? Are you having a hard time finding new customers? A lot of folks just like you in the IT and cybersecurity space are in the same situation. And they have embraced a new opportunity to get new clients. They're doing this by growing their online presence and maximizing the power of LinkedIn. How, you ask? I have a tried and tested method called my Cyber Social Program. I myself have been on LinkedIn and now have over 3.5 million LinkedIn views, and over on YouTube, I have over 750,000 video views. So I can show you exactly how I have done that so that you can promote your organization and become the authority in your industry. And the best part is, I've done all of this organically without one paid ad. You don't need to waste your money over on Google with pay-per-click ads. Now's the time to establish yourself. Look around. The competition isn't doing it. This is your time to shine online before they do. So if you're ready to start your online journey and future-proof your business, please, down below, click the link and schedule a time for us to have a 45-minute call where I can review the exact methodology of the Cyber Social Program. You can also click below to see some of my masterclasses, which will give you quick little snippets of a couple of things you can do right away on LinkedIn that will help with your profile. I hope to see you and hear from you soon.
Ooh, some channels to avoid. TikTok is the first one that comes to mind. So TikTok is actually an amazing platform. If you ignore all the controversy about China and surveillance and just put all that to one side, and you say TikTok is for people who use TikTok, engagement is off the scale. However, typically the average TikTok user right now is not decision maker in their 30s, 40s, or 50s. Typically, I know there are some people on there, but there's not many of them. So TikTok, maybe in 10 years' time, but not today. Instagram, I know a few MSPs who are killing it on Instagram, but that's because the people they want to reach are using Instagram. So if you want to reach retail shop owners, restaurant owners, they're using Instagram to reach consumers. And so they're on Instagram all the time. So it makes sense that the MSP would use Instagram to reach them. But again, if you want manufacturers, CPAs, lawyers, I don't think, again, and I'm speaking very broadly here because there are outliers in every case. Your average 52-year-old managing partner of a legal practice is not sitting on TikTok or Instagram in their lunch break. There are better ways to reach them. And then I think the other platform to avoid is whatever is today's brand new social media platform. So, a couple of months ago, or maybe a year ago, Be Real. Remember Be Real? That kind of went and came and went. Clubhouse. Do you remember Clubhouse? That was the audio only social media platform, a total flash in the pan. Still exists, and I'm sure there'll be a hardcore user base of like 12 people that use it for the next 10 years. But the risk is jumping onto something because it's the new buzzy thing that everyone's talking about, but then it's gone. And actually, that's what has made TikTok different. Is TikTok was a buzzy, big flash in the pan thing, grew massively during COVID, but TikTok gave its core user base exactly what they wanted. All the functionality they wanted, it was there for them, and then it's grown. TikTok's challenge now is to try and go on and become a different platform in the way that Facebook, back in 2000, I got on Facebook in about 2005, which is insane when I think that's 18 years ago. But Facebook has changed over the years and it's become bigger and so many more things. I use it today for groups. I use it to sell the tat I no longer want, so I can sell it through Marketplace. I use it for lots of different things, all different to the way I used it back in 2005. So Facebook has matured as I have matured. And of course, it has its own problems, but it's still a big platform. That's the challenge to TikTok. And I think I read something somewhere that TikTok it has more searches than Google. So it's used as a search engine by its users more than they use Google as a search engine, which is obviously Google's problem. And you can see how TikTok is changing and adapting to that and maybe around in the future. But yeah, to actually launch a social media platform, or indeed any platform that gets traction quickly and then can adapt and keep up with the very, very fickle changing desires of its users is very hard. So I think for most MSPs, you can just ignore whatever's in the news. And if it's still being talked about in 2 years' time, then at that point, maybe start to look into it and who's using it and are they people you want to reach?
Mhm. And I also tell them too that, because some of them say, well, I want to be on everything. All of a sudden they've gone from nothing to they want to be on everything. And, I say, well, let's start with LinkedIn. And then once we've kind of, got this wrote down, then we can, take a look at some of the other ones because it's, this has to be a
Yeah.
long-term game and we don't want this occupying our entire day. So, we have to make sure that we kind of pick selectively. So if someone only had 30 minutes a
Yeah.
day, what would you suggest they do?
30 minutes a day, I would, for 4 days a week, do LinkedIn. And for the other day a week, is go to an event. And so the goal is, okay, the problem is people only buy when they are ready to buy. And as we were talking about earlier, there is a massive inertial loyalty which just fogs the whole thing. So the problem you've got is you could meet someone at a networking meeting today and once a month for the next 5 years. But until the morning they wake up and think, right, I am done with my IT support people, because that's how they think. They didn't know what an MSP is at the term. Until that morning, they wake up and think, right, do you know what? I'm done. I'm drawing a line. I'm going to get someone else. That's the point at which suddenly their brain opens. In fact, there is a part of the brain, it's called the reticular activating system, which acts as a relevance filter. And so they can meet you once a month for years and not really take in who you are and what you do and the benefit then, because it's not relevant. Literally not getting into the conscious thinking part of their brain until that morning they wake up, they're ready for a new IT support company. And that's the point that they see you on LinkedIn, they get your email, they meet you in real life, perhaps even they get something from you in the mail, in the post. And so what we want to do is we want to hit a small number of highly likely prospects, lots of different ways. Well, we want to hit them with the same message delivered through lots of different channels. And the easiest way to do that consistently is just to educate them. Like you were saying earlier, tiny, tiny little things. Let's educate them and entertain them at the same time, which we call edutainment. Because it's boring just talking about technology and what it can do. We've got to entertain people as well. And you've got to keep doing this and keep doing it and keep doing it, because it could be that person who joined your or took your LinkedIn connection request today, or joined your email list today, or you met at a networking meeting today. It could be 5 years until they're ready to switch. But what we've got to remember here is the big picture context. It might be 5 years before you can hook them in, but once you've hooked them in, they're staying with you for another 5 years or 10 years or 15 years if you look after them. That's the big picture. It's a really slow sales cycle, but when you got someone, they are not going anywhere for a very long time if you do your job properly.
Absolutely. That's perfectly stated. It might take a while to get them, but like you said, once they're in, they're probably going to stick with you for a long, long time. And this, as we know, technology is not going away. So that's an important thing to remember. So now here's a good question for you. Google Ads. What's your take on Google Ads?
Google Ads are not right for 90% of MSPs. I know of quite a few, probably about 10, 15 MSPs who are doing very well on Google Ads. And often that's because they've either hired a really good company that's optimized it for them, or they've put themselves through big long training courses, which you can find online. I can't remember the name of the platform. There's one in particular that has a really good Google Ads course. The reason it's not right for 90% of MSPs is because to make Google Ads work, you've got to, first of all, keep that big picture in mind, which is if I win a client today, it might be $1,000 a month, but they're going to stay for 60 months, maybe even 120 months. So let's say they stay for 10 years, $1,000 a month for 10 years, that's $120,000. So that's that kind of, we call that average lifetime value. If you know a new client coming into your business is on average worth $120,000, then you would be very happy spending $2,000 on Google Ads to reach that person. Because that's the flip side of this, which is to find the tiny number of genuinely good prospects on Google Ads, you have to deal with a lot of crap. And every piece of crap you deal with is costing you money. Someone clicks on your link because they've got an iPad with a cracked screen, and they're trying to find someone who will fix that. And they live chat you or call you, but they clicked on you around 2 or 3 times. And that's cost you $30 or $40 per click. That's part of the noise. That's part of the crap that you have to deal with. And the MSPs who are happy with Google Ads and make money through it, they have both of those things. They have the bigger picture in mind, and they don't mind going through time waster, time waster, time waster. Oh, you've got 2 of you that work in the business, 1 of you's part-time. Okay, well, give us a call when you're up to 5 or 10. Time waster, time waster. Oh, hang on. Suddenly we've got a proper business on the line. They've got 25 staff. They've got an IT emergency. Their IT company hasn't responded for 24 hours, and they are desperate for help. That, my friend, is a prospect, because there's a company in trouble, needs immediate help, and we can actually leverage that into services contracts fairly quickly. And that's the instance when Google Ads really comes to its own. But as I say, for 90% of MSPs, you're not going to do that. You're not going to be on top of optimizing your Google Ads every day. You're not going to be, picking up you need to get a sales inquiry at 10 a.m. and be on the phone to them at 10 a.m. in 12 seconds. It's all about speed and being on top of the Google Ads, the inquiries that are coming in. For most MSPs, that's not enough, and that's why I don't recommend it to most. I think if you're a big MSP and you have a full-time marketing team, then definitely having an agency or someone to do it for you can be a good spend. I guess the other caveat is it depends where you are. If you're in LA, where there's about 40,000 MSPs, there's almost no point doing Google Ads, because you're just in a nuclear weapon, like a weapons of mutual destruction of spending each other to try and be at the top. If you're in small town backstreet USA, and there's you and 2 other players in, and actually it's costing you $10 a click, why not? It just guarantees you're at the top of the search engine results.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Location, very, very good point. Well, this was really, really, really helpful. So thank you very much. Is there anything else you want to throw out there to them that give them a little, 2 cents?
Yes. If there's one thing that you prioritize above anything else, it's doing something on a consistent basis. So you asked earlier, what would you do with 30 minutes a day? Oh my goodness. If every MSP I spoke to actually spent 30 minutes a day working on the business, doing marketing, things that get them brand new clients, things that get those clients to buy more often and spend more often, then the business goes insane when you do that. But the key is consistency. Far too many MSPs do a little bit of marketing and then a little bit more and a little bit more, and you never build up momentum. Marketing for MSPs is all about consistency and persistence. You've just got to do 30 minutes a day, every weekday will always work. You will outmarket all of your competitors if you do 30 minutes every single weekday, every single week of the year, or 51 weeks of the year. You can have a vacation. You will outmarket your bigger, hungrier, deeper pocketed competitors if they're focusing $50,000 campaigns, splurge of activity, and then nothing. You will always beat them through consistent marketing because every single day a new prospect wakes up and decides today is the day they're going to switch MSPs. And it's only by being there every day that you increase your odds of actually getting in front of them.
That is an excellent point because you're absolutely right. It's very hard to compete against the guys with the big deep pockets, but if you do a half an hour every single day, you absolutely could supersede them. And no question whatsoever. So I'm glad you just mentioned that. Well, this was really, really helpful. It was great to chat with you, and you have a lot of amazing information. If somebody wants to get in touch with you or your company, how do they do that?
Yeah, sure. We have a website that has literally 500 uh, free guides and MSP marketing strategy guides. And we answer things like how much does MSP marketing cost? All of this is free. If you go to Paul Greens, so there's an S on the end, Paul Greens, MSPmarketing.com, it's all there. And if you were interested in having a look, I mentioned I work with 700 MSPs. We have something called the MSP Marketing Edge, where we make your marketing easy and give you a weekly marketing system you can use for your MSP. But we only work with one MSP per area, or else the magic wouldn't work. So you can check to see if your area is available, pop your zip code in at mspmarketingedge.com.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very, very much. Really appreciate your time for, taking to share this with everybody.
Thanks for having me on.
All right. And thank you for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.